Straw Hut Media.
Hi, this is Matt Groening, creator of Millhouse, saying, don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. I am the proverbial Jay Kogan, and you are... Thank you for saying your name. I appreciate that. Today, I'm going to talk to a very smart and very interesting person named Matt Groening. Matt Groening, who apparently doesn't do these podcast things very often. I'm very grateful that he's here. The Simpsons was a big part of my life, and one of the early successful things I was lucky enough to be a part of. And one of the questions I want to ask him about is about the idea that I did something when I was in my early to mid 20s called The Simpsons, and it's still kind of one of the things I'm known for, aside from the huge success of this podcast. I mean, I don't want to denigrate how much people love this podcast, because when The Simpsons was very popular, they were selling Bart t-shirts on the sides of the off-ramps of the freeways, and now they're selling Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan t-shirts off of every freeway, and I couldn't be prouder. And those guys are licensed, by the way. That's not bootleg stuff. Anyway, The Simpsons. I've done other stuff. I've done movies. I've done TV shows. I've created shows. But people still know The Simpsons because that's kind of still what's on. And should I be worried that that's my thing? Or is it just enough to just be a part of something a long time ago and that's it? So I'll talk to Matt about it. I think, he's a pretty cool guy. He will tell me to settle down there, partner, or some kind of thing where he calms me down. Matt Groening, as you, if you're watching this, probably already know, genius cartoonist, came from Life in Hell, made this great alt cartoon and got famous, somewhat famous doing this in underground circles. And he went from this underground circle to this huge mega pop star circle of creating The Simpsons. And it was a wave that he rode with such grace and such aplomb. Anyway, I'm going to talk to Matt, who has now spent 30 years being a version of Walt Disney or Gene Roddenberry or George Lucas, somebody famous who's the main person who's known for that one thing, and talk about how he handles that, and talk about how I should handle my memory of The Simpsons and my legacy of The Simpsons. And we'll talk with him right after this.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
The point of this conversation, Matt, is I haven't really caught up with you in 35 years.
That's true.
Like that. So I would love, when I knew you...
We have talked.
Yes, we have talked, but we haven't...
And we've been meaning to get together.
Sat, and also, when I knew you had 2 children, now you have 45.
I do. I do.
That's a lot.
I have a lot of kids.
A lot of kids.
I have two kids that are grown-ups now.
Right.
And then I have an 11-year-old.
Right.
I have 2 7-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Spinky and Spunky.
I wish you'd have talked to me first about the names.
I know. That's Poindexter was the real bad one.
Sure, I understand.
And Millhouse.
Oh, wow.
I decided I had to make it up.
Millhouse. Why choose that one? Wow.
That's sad. Yeah, it is sad. But I spell it the way Richard Milhouse Nixon spelled it.
Oh, good.
Because in The Simpsons, we added an E.
So you have
So I have
11?
an 11-year-old, 2 7-year-olds, 2 5-year-olds.
Right.
That's right. You heard me right. 2 7-year-olds, 2 5-year-olds. That's right. I have 2 sets of twins.
That's a lot of kids.
I have a 3-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I have a 6-month-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? Stop screwing. I got to say that. Just considered?
No, that's the thing is I just found out about birth control. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of kids.
Well, you know what? It's a tribute to my wife, Agustina, from Argentina. She is a force of nature, and I thought I was done with kids a long time ago, but I was informed otherwise.
If your wife,
I kid.
Yeah, sure, you kid about kids,
and it's not for everybody,
right?
Okay,
right.
But it is the greatest thing in the world. I get into kid culture because of the kids and stuff, and then they grow out of it, and I'm still stuck. I mean, I'm still addicted to Peppa Pig, right? And my kids are beyond Peppa Pig.
I felt that way about SpongeBob. That SpongeBob was so good that I wanted to keep watching it even well after Charlie was too old.
SpongeBob is the greatest.
It is really a fantastic cartoon.
Yes.
Speaking of fantastic cartoons,
Futurama.
Futurama?
No.
Why not? No, I mean, Futurama, fantastic cartoon.
Uh-huh.
The Simpsons, fantastic cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that, have you lost your love of cartoons by now after this many years?
No. Cartoons are the best.
The best.
I love animation.
Okay.
I love it. Animation is the greatest.
Right.
There were 90 animated shorts nominated for up for Oscars
Right.
this year. I watched all of them.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Not all good.
Not all good.
But the good ones are really good.
How do you get to be a shitty cartoon that's nominated for an Oscar?
I think for shorts, they
nominate
allow
anybody.
a lot of people to.
Well, I know how they
90
feel.
odd.
This program was nominated for a podcast award.
By the
so
way,
I know how that goes.
I will never say that a cartoon is shitty.
Right.
Because I know how hard they are. You know how hard they are.
I do know how hard they are.
Animation is the hardest thing in the world, and getting the tone right. I mean, I see lots of cartoons that maybe you consider them not exactly successful on their own terms, but you know what they were going in doing.
Right.
And they didn't work, and it's the tone, and it's really hard. In fact, one of the things I would say about The Simpsons and Futurama and the rest is it's a constant experiment every episode, and you never know. It could easily go over the cliff in any episode. Rarely does it, and we usually fix it.
Right. Well, I say this. I mean, I've said this for years and years and years. I left The Simpsons many, many, many years ago. I can't even count how many years ago. And people say, well, the years you were on were the best years. And I said, no. I say the years we were on were great, but it's still great. Like, the show continues to be great. And I think people don't look at it because it's something that most of these people have had their whole lives.
Right.
They've had since the beginning of time. It's just a fact of their life, instead of looking at it like we did when we first got there, like, holy shit, this is amazing and so great. So the sparkle of that is gone, but the quality of the show is just as good now as it's ever been.
Well, The Simpsons is kind of like a forum for different comedy styles, So it's an animated show. It's a sitcom. It's very conservative, a bland premise,
right?
Dad, dumb dad, and bratty kids. But, we're reinventing ourselves over and over again. There's 750 some episodes, something like that,
right.
And
most of them have to do with Batman. Almost all of them, somewhere.
And by the way, you were being modest about your contribution to the show.
Oh, that's going to end very quickly, but go ahead.
But no, I loved it when you were on the show. When you guys, I always think of you.
Me and Wally, we were partners. We were both on the show, absolutely.
But also, but it was so much fun back then because really, first of all, we were young,
right,
and stupid, and young and stupid,
right,
along with the Fox network,
right,
and they were taking chances. And one of the great things that people, what's amazing is that of the major networks, only Fox would take a chance on an animated primetime show that actually let us do what we wanted to do. I mean, there were some other bad cartoons on some of the other networks over the years, but really Fox, good for Fox for letting us do it. It was really funny at the very beginning because the executives thought, we're going to throw our weight around here. And first of all, Jim Brooks is the king.
Right.
And second of all, they got so bored very quickly because it's no fun to look over the shoulders of animators and say,
so much work for
that.
It's also so much work. Like, there's so many different revisions for somebody to be looking at and then talking to their boss about. It would just kill them. So it was killing us. So it's like
it did kill us.
Yeah,
I mean, back in those days, we were staying up until I was the guy that went home earliest. I went home between 1 and 2 in the morning, and you guys stayed up until 4 or 5.
We were idiots, kid idiots, and we had nothing better to do anyway.
I had a pregnant wife.
You had a family coming on.
I had my first kid on the way, and I at 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, guys, I got to go.
All right. So this is a baby that I knew when he was born. I believe I gave him a suit of armor when he was first born.
Was that yours?
Yes.
God, he will not take that off.
my girlfriend at the time thought that was a very bad idea.
Okay, well, so you know the story on Will, and I hope he doesn't. This may be something I will ask you to take. No, I won't. His real name is Homer.
I do know that.
And I named Homer after my father, Homer, who I named the character after. And I thought, I will make up to my father, my father Homer.
Right.
The fact that I named this idiot cartoon character after all by naming my
Right.
my son. However, when you're wheeling a baby carriage down the sidewalk,
Right.
and people say, "Oh, what a cute little baby! What's his name?" Homer.
Right.
And then they burst out laughing,
Sure.
and then they'd get this horrified look on their faces when they realize I wasn't kidding.
He's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember that his name was Homer.
Yeah.
And I completely understand why his name is not Homer right now.
Well, that's his middle name. Will.
Yeah.
Will is
That one of the things I want to talk about. This show is Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. Is about
Right.
me asking smart people about my problems.
Right.
And my problem that I think you would be expert in is I worked on The Simpsons a long, long time ago. And it's still, I think, the credit that I'm most associated with. And I haven't worked there in 30 years.
Yeah.
And should I be worried about that? In other words, I did that. I did Frasier. I made movies. I wrote a lot of things that I'm very, very proud of. But that thing that I did when I was 25 years old is the thing I'm known for. And does that mean that the rest of my life doesn't count? Does that mean that
you had your moment of glory. It's downhill,
right?
man.
But I mean,
No.
you're known for The Simpsons, and
Right.
and what's interesting about that?
By the way, can I tell
Yeah.
the difference between
Yeah.
you and me? I'm still doing it.
I know.
You graduated.
You have
You moved away.
But you have the right to take the bows for The Simpsons. You created the
I
show.
take the bows.
You created the show, and it's been, a million episodes, 700 and some episodes in. You have every right to take the bows. I am no longer.
No, you'd have the
bows.
right, of course, because you were there. You were self-denigrating.
Kidding.
But those episodes that you guys came up with were so. I mean, you made Krusty the Clown Jewish,
Well, that's true.
right?
People.
And in my mind, I just
Right.
got to tell you,
Yeah.
when you guys pitched it and everybody
Right.
burst out laughing,
Yeah.
I went, no,
Right.
Krusty the Clown is not Jewish. He's based on a real clown in Portland, Oregon, where I
Right.
grew up, named Rusty Nails, and was
Right.
a Christian clown. And Rusty Nails is going to be mad when he finds out that Krusty was Jewish.
Right.
So,
Was Rusty Nails mad?
no, he was very happy.
That's good. We took Krusty from. He was originally in the animated shorts, wasn't he? Or-
Yes.
Yeah. So we stole him from that and and like the rest of the show, expounded. We grew the characters every time, and so
Right.
Bart grew from what he was in the shorts. He wasn't called Bart. Lisa, all the characters, the dad, everybody grew.
Well, in my mind, at the very beginning, I had all sorts of plans. I mean, back when they were on the Tracy Ullman show,
Right.
those little 15-second shorts, they were intended to be a half-hour animated sitcom. But I thought I was too embarrassed to say that out loud because of who the hell was I to say that these little cartoons
That
should
is
be
shocking news to me.
No, so,
Honestly.
So
That's-
that was always my intention.
Okay.
And I just auditioning.
Right.
The first season they stayed inside the house. The
Right.
second season they went out into the backyard, and the third season
Right.
they went into town. So
Okay.
there you go. And
All right. Yes,
on the Tracy
I
Ullman
remember
show.
that.
Anyway, so I had all these ideas. For instance, Krusty the Clown was originally going to be Homer. That was his secret.
He is Homer. He's drawn. He looks exactly like
It is.
him.
That was meant to be Homer,
Right.
and the psychological thing was Bart worshipped Krusty the Clown, but he had no respect for his father, and
Right.
I couldn't quite come to grips with the idea: why is Homer afraid to let Bart know that
Right.
he's Krusty the Clown?
Right.
But why does Batman not tell everybody either? Right?
Right. Well, because he'll get killed, and he's got more dangerous enemies.
Or maybe that's what Homer lives on is
Yeah.
the respect that Bart has for this alter ego. Anyway, but then it didn't work that way, and
Other people jumped on to the
jumped
dream.
on. And it's so funny because so much of The Simpsons and so much of what people consider classic is based on a notion somebody had on the spot in the room that made the show take a left turn.
Things
And that was
become-
one of them.
Things become canon in a very strange way.
Yes.
Well,
If it gets a laugh, it becomes canon.
But here's the thing about that is we did these dumb little jokes, and they are now forever ingrained in a history of a show that goes on and on and on. When you were, working at a record store and drawing cartoons and sort of an alt cartoonist,
Right.
and when I first met you, you were a avid consumer and probably still are of pop culture.
Yes.
And you knew more about weird ancillary music and strange things, and you knew the red bartender tapes, and you had a storehouse of knowledge about this kind of stuff. Now, the show that you created is now fodder for those people to do that again. And is it weird to be on the other side of this?
Yes, of course it is. It's my demographic are anybody who is under 10, right? I mean, they're,
Right.
they know the stuff. My youngest kids are now watching The Simpsons in the car on the little TV in the back seat on the way to school.
Right.
And I'm listening to it as a radio show, and they're watching the old episodes,
Right.
and I'm going, oh yeah, that joke still works. Or, I wish we, and then there are a few things that I'm still mad about,
Such as?
Well, remember the episode with Lance Murdoch, the Daredevil?
Yes.
And was that your
That's
episode?
my episode.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys laughed your asses off when at the very, I didn't even remember what the last line was, but there's the last line. He had a final punchline, and you guys it was edited in a weird way, so it cut on the line, and you guys thought that was great. I thought the joke needed to breathe.
Okay.
Another second.
Right.
So that's all, and it still irritates me. However, there was a scene in which they put a drop of blood in a big pool
of sharks
that he was supposed to jump
Right.
over, and including in the pool of sharks there was a lion.
There's a lion, yeah.
And this is how new we were on the show. I thought you can't put a lion in a pool and have it swim around.
Yeah.
The shark will eat the lion. So
one of my
I was
favorite
wrong,
gags.
and that's one of my favorite gags.
That's one of my favorite gags. That show, by the way, is the one I show when people say, come to a class and talk about The Simpsons. I show Bart the Daredevil because I love that show from start to finish. I am so happy with it. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of what we did. And the fact that there's a lion swimming in a pool of sharks and the shot of it just poking its head up over the pool is one of my...
completely agree.
Yeah, no.
This just shows how I was in a different world at the moment.
And I say this all the time. The older I get, the less I know about what's going to work. Like, I was so headstrong when I was young and said, like, this is funny and this is going to work and you're wrong, man.
Yeah.
And now I don't say that at all.
Yes, I have learned myself, as you know.
Yeah.
That was an amazing. There were also other great lines. I mean, "Chicks Dig Scars" was one of them.
Right.
And was it "The Horrors of the Three Stooges" Ward? Was that in that episode?
I think so. Yeah, there was so many great jokes, and very few of them are mine. They're just great, and the collaborative process makes it so good.
Yeah.
And
I
take credit for something that's
but take credit.
40 people
take
did.
credit.
Well, I don't.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
I do what you did. I learned early on what you did, which is you told everybody all the time, it's a group of people making this show.
Yes.
Every single time they wanted to approach you and say, you're the cartoonist from these sort of out there, a rebel to TV,
Sure.
and here you are, and then they wanted the secret to making a new exciting show, and you said, well, there's a lot of really interesting people who I work with, and everybody contributes.
That's the nature of animation. Right. It's a collaborative effort, and we had amazing writers. I mean, unbelievable writers.
But the more you said it, the more they didn't believe it. And it seemed like a humble, like you being adorably humble. That was fine. I know exactly. Adorably humble. So you did both. You got the credit for being the good guy who says exactly the truth, but then the world also comes to you and says, fucking genius.
Well, the secret of narcissists is to give away the credit.
Right.
Give it away.
Right. There's enough for everybody.
There's enough for everybody. Give it away. And the fact is, it's really true how much credit there is to go around. The amazing thing about The Simpsons or any good animated TV show is it's the writing, it's the animation, and it's the acting. I mean, we were so amazingly fortuitous to have Dan Castellaneta and Julie Kavner assigned to the show when it was on the Tracy Ullman show.
That's right.
And then when we cast two other people, Yardley Smith and Nancy Cartwright.
And you were so lucky to have Tracy refuse to do one of the voices, so you could cast them for the other people.
Well, I don't know what was going on. They told me to stay away from Tracy.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah,
I think that was a really good idea.
But I think it was because she had so much. She had so much to do on. Were you on the Tracy Ullman show?
Yeah,
you were on that. Of course you were.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. That was my entree onto The Simpsons. Was Wally and I were working on the Tracy Ullman show, and Sam was there, and you were there, and so we were walking around the West Side Pavilion talking about what shows we would write a little bit.
Right.
And there was like we were the first ones there, kind of. You and Sam were the first ones there, and Jim, and you figured out what you were going to do. And then you took us in a room and said, we have a place. It's Springfield, but we're not going to say where it is.
Right.
And like you had all that stuff mapped out, which was really fantastic.
Sam was amazing. Sam was really cool because he had done. He's the only person on the show that had done animation,
Right.
Of the writers, and he did Fat Albert or something.
Yes,
like
Fat
that.
Albert.
And that was there's the expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And also, he's one of the funniest people on earth.
He was, and so if The Simpsons is all we're known for, does Futurama not matter? In other words, do other things that you've done that you're proud of that you've got?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, I did Life in Hell as a weekly comic strip
Right.
for 32 years.
Correct.
Nobody asks about that anymore.
That's not true. I have questions for you from people who wrote in who
Okay.
want to know
Well, there you
about
go.
Life in Hell. So we can ask that now. They said, like, what inspired you to make Life in Hell? And B, will it ever come back?
I inspired LA, the town of LA,
Right.
inspired Life in Hell, the title. I moved to LA. I got a job in a Xerox place on Wilshire Boulevard, and I would Xerox screenplays for big shots and novel manuscripts and stuff. And I go, God, someday I'm going to do something. I know, I'll do a little comic strip.
Right.
And I printed my own comic strip.
It was great.
Yeah, and called Life in Hell.
Yeah.
And I sold it. And then my next job was working at Licorice Pizza, the record store
Right.
up on Sunset Strip across the street from the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Right.
And I sold it in the punk section.
Right.
And I was so proud of it. And I was even proud when the punks would come in and rip it up. I thought, that is kind of a sign of,
Right.
of respect.
Yeah, it meant something. It meant enough to rip it up. That's very cool. But let's go back to one thing you said. The story I had of you creating The Simpsons was Fox brought you in, and Jim brought you in to maybe do Life in Hell as a bumper for Tracy Ullman, and then you said, oh, all right. And then they said, but we want to own it. And there's, oh, no.
Yes.
Please don't do that. And then you came up with this other thing and said, do this.
Yes.
But like on the fly.
On the fly. Yes, that is true. They brought me in, Polly Platt,
Yes.
Jim's producer, liked my comic strip and actually gave him a piece of original art. And then he brought me in. This is when he was still at Paramount.
Right.
And it was so funny because I was living right next door to Paramount.
Okay.
And so when I had my meeting with Jim, I walked around the block to go to the Paramount lot, and I walked on the lot, and the guard says, "Where do you think you're going?" I go, "Oh, I have an appointment." And they go, "Where's your car?" And I go, "It got towed away." And they wouldn't let me on the lot, so I had to call, and
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so and then a few years later, that was like 1985. A few years later, they did the Tracy Ullman show, 1987, and they brought me in again, and I found out what you just said, that I was going to lose the ownership of, and I thought, this Life in Hell thing is really, that's my bread and butter.
Exactly.
So I made up The Simpsons on the spot.
Right. But then as you're doing the cartoon, you think, this could be maybe something. Maybe more than just a short.
Well, the second I did, the second that we did it. Well, first of all, they said, listen, we're doing this new comedy variety show, the Tracy Ullman Show, and we want to do animation in it. Could you do a 2-minute cartoon for every episode? And I said, 2 minutes? That's impossible. You can't tell a story in 2 minutes. Right. And they said, well, that's what we're offering. Right. And so I went home and they said, they called me up and they said, by the way, it's not 2 minutes, it's 1 minute. Right. And I went, oh no. Right. And then they called me up and they said, it's not 1 minute, it's 30 seconds, 2 30-second thing. And then they divided that up into 4 15 seconds. So the whole success, the foundation of The Simpsons is based on 15-second shorts. Right. But on the they were very good and people liked them. Well, I figured that you're only getting people's attention for a very short amount of time. So basically you have to be very physical and very visual. Right. Like the dialogue really didn't matter. Right. And a bratty kid and an angry dad who strangles his kid. Right. There you go. That's classic. There you go. You can't go wrong with that. Of course. In fact, I think, did I make up Homer strangling Bart, and I think it might have been in an old Katzenjammer Kids comic.
Yeah.
Where the captain is strangling Hans or Fritz or
I'm
both.
sure there are people strangling each other in Warner Brothers cartoons. That's
but parents, fathers strangling kids. That's
That's good.
That's a little risky.
Well, but years later, when we were in it, you didn't want Homer to be strangling Bart anymore.
No. That's not true. I always did.
Okay.
I never learned.
Okay.
I refused to back down.
You just didn't want their faces to stretch out.
No, I have all sorts of rules.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I didn't want them to. Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes their face, when you strangle their faces,
I loved, certain people know how to stretch The Simpsons. Yeah. David Silverman, who basically created the rules of how to draw the characters. Right. He's a genius, and he can do whatever he wants.
He will be on the show.
There are some animators that didn't like they were working on The Simpsons. Back when we first did it, there was nothing like the show, and the people who went into animation worshiped Disney or worshiped Warner Brothers. Right. And they didn't, what the heck is this horrible cartoon? And so we had an episode, the first episode, I think, Homer and Marge go out dancing. And they did this Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, unbelievable ballroom dancing. I said, no, they're old, they're middle aged, they clunky, they're crotchety, they're not flexible. Right. And I made them do it again, and they hated my guts. Oh my God, they can't dance like Fantasia.
I remember that so much of the show, certainly at the beginning, you had a very strict diet of what was okay and what wasn't. And
that's loosened up a little, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was helpful back then to sort of like narrow in on what we do. Like, what is it that we're doing and what is it we're not doing?
Well, here's the thing though, when you're the angry school marm going, now boys, no, I don't want any slapping while I turn my back. Right. There's nothing but slaps. Right. Of course. So I would say to you guys, okay, please, no Hitler jokes. Okay, come on. There's people who have gone through the Holocaust. Let's not do that. Mm-hmm. Hitler joke.
Right. So he's pretty funny. Gotta be honest. He's pretty funny. Of all the dictators, World War II dictators, it's like Hitler and Mussolini.
That was my pet peeve. Yeah. Hitler jokes. I also didn't like, what else I didn't like? I didn't like when animals were aware of themselves as cartoon characters. Mm-hmm. So
that's immediately, a Disney thing.
Immediately they put a catfish winking at camera. And when I say they, I mean you.
Yeah, all right. Listen, as a taskmaster, you weren't very good, because I will say this, you're a very nice guy.
Yes.
And so it's not easy for you to be that guy, but you're passionate about the work. So
well, I'm inconsistent. So I can be adamant and stubborn, but I'm also a wimp. So people don't take it seriously.
But I mean that's part of what made. And what makes you great, I would say, is that you are a real person who is extraordinarily nice. The fact that you're here, by the way, extraordinarily nice. You tell me you've never done a podcast or something like that.
Well, I told you you're third in line.
Third in line, yeah.
But 20 years ago or more, Mark Maron asked me to do his podcast. I haven't done it yet.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. I did a Simpsons podcast. Yeah. That was great.
Because Mark Maron is my arch enemy. So fuck you, Mark Maron. Fuck you, Mark Maron. I got him. Fuck you. I don't know. But I was going to say, like, people would say, well, did Matt, is Matt worth all the money and all that? I said, yeah. Why not? Why not? Yeah.
Better me than
anybody. Honestly, anybody. No. Like Hollywood is rife. Hollywood is rife with horrible people who I'd be really angry at if they got really rich off of an idea that just exploded in a particular moment. And you are not one of them.
Well, I would say the same thing for you. You maybe you're not rich, but no.
Wait a second. Are you offering me a deal?
No, what I'm saying is it's possible to do good work and not be a jerk.
Yes.
And that's been my goal, is actually, because, all the people I admire were jerks.
Right, of course.
I don't particularly like the writing of Ernest Hemingway, but I love reading biographies of him because he was such a jerk.
Right, and I'm really unhappy.
Yeah. And those, it just entertains me to no end. And I've read probably 5 biographies of Hemingway, but his books, some of them are okay.
Do you think being a super fan of so many great artists helped you to sort of be prepared for the onslaught of what became of The Simpsons and you in terms of its fame and all that kind of stuff, and not be misled with becoming a jerk over
Well,
time?
you know what? I don't even know if that has anything to do with anything that I'm about to answer.
Okay.
But it's not that I'm. You said that you were a pop culture enthusiast.
Yeah.
I am. Yes, but in very, very specific, narrow areas. For instance, I know you have raved about Elvis Costello.
Yes.
And Bruce Springsteen and people who I would consider very mainstream. I love Elvis Costello.
Yes.
I've never listened to a Bruce Springsteen album.
Okay. Good for you.
I'm just saying that. But I used to write about rock and roll.
Right.
I never had a Bob Dylan album.
Right.
Okay. I mean, he's great. I'm not saying.
So you were a bad writer of rock and roll.
I was terrible.
Right.
I did not do my research, but I did like avant-garde jazz.
Right.
And I did like classical contemporary music, and I did like silly novelty, crazy stuff. Spike Jones and
Weird
Carl
Al.
Stalling,
Yes.
the guy that did all the Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
In fact, there are albums of his cartoon soundtracks out, and I'll tell you, there's nothing like driving down Melrose, playing a Bugs Bunny soundtrack with your windows rolled down.
I bought that box set of CDs.
Yes.
Carl Stalling. I bought that.
Yes.
While I was at The Simpsons.
Right.
And it's fantastic.
It's
and
fantastic.
He's fantastic.
Well, back in the day, before we did The Simpsons, what does a cartoon soundtrack? What should it sound like? And I made a little tape, a mixtape of all the things that I wanted to be in The Simpsons theme,
Right.
and Nino Rota, Julia to the Spirits, and other Fellini soundtracks, and a bunch of other stuff. And in fact, I drove up to the Dudley Do-Right Emporium on Sunset Strip, and there behind the counter was Jay Ward, the creator of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and he sold me a cassette tape of the Rocky and Bullwinkle theme and all this stuff, and I took that back and I played that to the people. And then finally, we got Danny Elfman on board, and the reason for Danny Elfman was because first of all, I was a huge fan of the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, his band preceding Oingo Boingo. Mm-hmm. But he did the score for Pee-wee's Big Adventure,
right?
And that knocked me out. It was very sort of a Nino Rota homage, and I thought we got to work.
And he
with
said
this
we
guy.
can rip off the Jetsons. Come on, let's do this.
And the Jetsons was one of the Jetsons is still one of the greatest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hoyt Curtin.
Yeah,
I wrote that.
It's fantastic. Fantastic.
Vic Mizzy, who did Addams Family and Green Acres, all that stuff. But then I also like obscure,
I know,
George
but that was the
Crumb
thing. Like you had all this knowledge of all this sort of.
But again, very deep, but very narrow.
Yeah, but that's perfect. That's what super fans do. They discard all the other stuff and they find the perfect stuff and they lift it up. But now The Simpsons, at least it was when we first started, was lifted up by that same group of super fans, and it's sort of like weird to be on the other side of it. And you handled that kind of adulation from, I would say our people, but more your people.
Well, no, but I think this applies to you and to all the writers and the animators. Is there is that extreme enthusiasm which drove you to be a comedian, and a comic writer. To me, comedy or humor is a language. That's why I came up with this idea when I was pretty young. I'm telling jokes that only other kids in the class are getting and the teacher isn't getting and some of the square kids aren't getting. Right? And I said, this is like a language. And I still think that.
Yeah, it's a form of communication for sure.
And part of what is fun about working on The Simpsons is that there are people that get the language.
Right.
And The Simpsons isn't straight down the middle, and that was one of the fun things, that there was this show that was on TV that wasn't so dumb and square, that had some really sly stuff in it.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Do you remember when Fox brought us a piece of research, I think in year 2, of what people liked about The Simpsons. And we thought we were writing all these really clever jokes that people elevating comedy to a high degree. And Fox said, apparently people like the pretty colors and when Homer falls down.
Yes.
It's like, fuck you. It's like, that's what you like? We're staying up till 4 a.m. to write Homer falls down?
Well, also, Jim Brooks also gave us our mission. He said, we got to make people forget they're watching a cartoon, and we have to honor all the characters.
Right.
Don't just write. The writers wanted to write jokes for Bart and for Homer.
Right.
It was harder to write jokes for Marge and for Lisa.
Yes, it was.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
but if you were a smart writer, you would jump on a Lisa episode because you'd have Jim Brooks at your back,
right,
helping you.
Right. And Jim Brooks made up some of the greatest lines in the history of the show. I mean, the most amazing thing about Jim was he'd sit there and suddenly it was like he channeled something, and he would dictate a paragraph perfectly. Right. The rest of us are stumbling around like, what if Bart says, don't have a cow, man? And he would just write this stuff that was absolutely incredible. And you'd think, oh, I get it. He's an old guy. He's not hip like us. And then he'd pitch the wildest joke. Yeah. My favorite one was on the Simpsons movie. There was a scene in which Bart gets locked in a sarcophagus for King Tut. And he's banging, trying to get out, and Marge says, "Homer, let him out of the sarcophagus." And Homer says, "Marge, he's got to learn to overcome his fear of coffins." And
that's a great joke.
That's a great joke.
It's a great joke.
I think we did end up using it on the show. But.
I know that we did something on the show where Batman, it was Dracula. Somehow Dracula, it was a fantasy moment where Dracula came down in a cape and all. Thank you, Dracula, for saving the day. We treated him like a superhero, and Jim was just perplexed. He just said, "What's with the Dracula worship? I don't get it."
Maybe you'll know the answer because I always get it wrong. One of my all-time favorite jokes in the writers' room was I think it was a Dracula joke. It was one of the Treehouse of Horror things very early on, in which Mr. Burns has a brain, a disembodied brain that has a spine on it.
Yes.
And he puts it on his head and says, "Look at me, I'm Davy Crockett."
Yes. That is my joke.
Okay.
That is my joke.
I remembered it absolutely convinced that it was John Vidi's joke. Yeah. And everybody corrected me. That was your joke.
That was my joke.
That joke. When you pitched that, everybody fell on the floor laughing.
Including me, by the way, which you're not supposed to do.
Yes.
But I started laughing so hard, I fell off the couch. And sat on the ground. I think I farted.
That was a dirty carpet.
I really had. It was a filthy carpet. It was late. I was very punchy, and I remember pitching that joke. And look at me, I'm Davy Crockett, and thinking, and you're not supposed to laugh at your own joke. The whole thing is you pitch it and let people. But I couldn't stop laughing.
It was really fun to see you enjoy your joke. That runs through my head a lot, even though I misremembered who pitched it.
That's okay. John Vitti.
But now, as soon as people said, I go, yeah, now I remember.
John Vitti pitched many great, funny jokes that it doesn't matter. It's just throw caution to the wind. All right. So I have a few questions that I want to give. People asked me to ask you.
It's question time.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Okay. Charlie Kogan.
Yes, by the way, I am a fan of your show. I actually listen to your show.
Oh, fantastic.
I would subscribe, but I don't really know how.
I bet, by the way, just because he's an idiot, you have to subscribe to my show. I need like 100 more subscribers, and we get some sort of prize? Is that what happens, producer Ryan? If we get 500 subscribers, we get a prize of some kind. Maybe a magazine subscription or something. But all right. So question for Matt. You wrote Colonel Homer, one of my all-time favorite episodes. This is from Corey Taft, a writer. Mm-hmm. Do you think you will write another episode or two? And how are episode ideas pitched in the writers' room?
I have the best situation because I get to pitch notions.
Right.
I could. What if Homer was a French pastry chef?
Right.
Go for it.
Right.
But
that's how Treehouse of Horror was built. You came in. Oh. You came into the rewrite room with Treehouse of Horror, which was just kids telling ghost stories in the treehouse.
Right.
And I think it was not met originally with incredible enthusiasm.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
And Wally
Yeah.
Even more than me. But Wally and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, this would give us a fun excuse to do a lot of things that we don't normally do. And so for a series of weeks, we would go back to that idea and go back to that idea. And eventually it became the legendary, one of the greatest things the show ever did.
I'm very happy with the Treehouse of Horror.
Unbelievable.
But in fact, we're so into it. I've pitched that we do 3 Treehouse of Horror. Instead of doing a trilogy,
Right.
we do 3 in a row
Right.
that are a full half-hour episode.
That would be fantastic.
That would
Night,
be great.
on Halloween.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So
That's fantastic. But these, but
That
you
joke
had-
got- that idea
particular
got
one was
pitched
more
and-
than a notion. That was an actual show about
Yeah.
going to the treehouse and talking and exchanging stories. But it morphed into something with the writer's room when it sort of came around and we finally sort of punched Sam enough to go like,
Sam didn't like it.
can't you see the beauty of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he
came around. You know, he
came around with the Raven. He
Yeah.
came around with
Oh
the
yeah.
Raven.
Well, then I didn't like the Raven,
Right.
Because the Raven didn't have enough jokes,
No.
in my opinion.
The Raven
but
sucks.
it's great.
No,
The
it's
Raven
not-
is great.
It's not great. The Raven is the worst part of that show because it's just somebody reading the Raven. All right, but it's fine.
But that's
it
what
launched-
that's was my problem with that
Yeah.
at the beginning. But I thought Silverman did most
He
amazing
did.
animation.
It's beautiful.
job
It's
and all that
fantastic,
stuff.
and it's James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
After he was eating a bunch of cookies, I don't know why he ate a plate full of cookies and then decided that's the time that he should do his narration.
I worked with some voice actors who are eating caramel corn or whatever just before they pride themselves in not being heard on mic
Right.
with the food in their mouths. In fact, the other thing I always try to do is I say get the actors to actually eat the food, specifically
Right.
Homer, to eat the food that he's eating on screen, so it's not just him going
Right.
and then us adding sound effects.
And did they
But
do
Dan,
that?
I think Dan is too clean living to actually
That's
eat
true.
donuts.
He's very
and-
healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. He can eat something that's soft, and then it'd be good. But what is your answer?
Oh, I see what
to
we're writing.
not writing more episodes?
Well, from the very beginning, I felt like the writers were so good that where I put my contribution into the show is where I thought I could provide an alternate, and the writers I thought were funnier than I was. So that's one of the reasons why I haven't written more episodes.
Right.
But I pitched lots of jokes,
Yeah.
and over the years I've
Right.
done my thing. I think
It's also
I
different-
should do.
It's also no, you shouldn't. Having been a showrunner before, that's what writers are for. Like the writers are there to sort of generate the fodder,
Right.
and then the executives and the showrunners are there to say that's a good idea, run with it. Here, as in halfway through, we like this, don't like this, change this, and then when the final script comes in, change it again and change it again and change it again, and sort of oversee it all the way through. There's no time, if you're doing all that for so many episodes, to be writing your own episode.
And also doing the
All the animation, design stuff,
and
yeah.
and I draw every
Right.
frame.
I-
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
The thing is the drawing,
people.
drawing the show is hard, but
Yes.
the coloring it,
Right.
You
No,
know how much
let's
we
be
spend
honest,
in yellow
you built
paint?
the computer that now draws the show, right? Is that what you did?
Here's the thing. This is my constant note now on the designs. I said, make it look less computery.
Okay.
It's got to
Yeah.
look like it was drawn by hand.
Yeah.
And because of computers and cut and paste
Right.
and flipping and flopping and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, we try to make it look like hand drawn.
Right.
Because
Right.
computer animation is great, but it doesn't have that hand drawn crummy look.
You have Matt Selman and Al Jean and some of the
Selman.
greatest writers in the world to help.
Al
make
Jean
it-
has been there basically since the very beginning.
Yeah.
So many people, by the way, like we alluded to you
Right.
graduating.
Right.
There's some people that never graduated. You
Yeah.
know, they've been around forever. And I was telling you before we went on the air, I said, I think of some people as the new guy. I think of Hank Azaria,
Right.
who came in episode 8. He's
Right.
the new guy.
Right.
And in the
Right.
cast.
But he feels like the new guy. I'm sure he still feels like the new guy. But that's fantastic. That some people are still there.
Al Jean is still knocking it out.
Right.
Matt Selman has been there forever.
It's
and
creepy
he's-
though. When you go back into the writer's room, for me, it's creepy to see them still there, but just
Right.
so much older.
Yeah.
So much older. So I don't know. But part of me's jealous. They're still there. They're still making this great thing.
There's so many great
Yeah.
writers. Yes.
Russell Davis asks, what is your favorite part of the collaborative process of making TV? We kind of talked about that. What's your least favorite part?
My favorite part is for The Simpsons, it's the very first thing we do, which is after the script is written, is the table read,
Right.
and just hearing how the jokes sound, and then the very, very last thing we do, which is mix the show. And it's amazing how something, you get animation and it just can lie there until you get the right music and the right effects, you know, and suddenly it pops.
Yeah.
And over the years we've learned more pain, more funny.
Right.
Right. If I have any comedy theory,
Right.
more pain, more funny.
Okay.
In fact, I there was an episode in which Homer gets into a giant fist fight with Smithers, of all people.
Right.
And we got the animation back, and we're on the stage trying to mix it, and it's not funny. It's just horrifying. And there's one point in which Homer or Smithers hits the other one in the face with a phone repeatedly. And it's just horrifying. And we're stuck because we go on the,
Right.
this was a Thursday and we go on the air on Sunday.
Right.
And we tried, we said, okay, you know what? Because usually we try to make the sound effects real. Let's make them cartoony, boing, you know.
Made it bad.
No,
Yeah.
terrible,
Right.
terrible. And finally, just as a lark, said, take out all sounds of exertion. So all of Homer going, ugh,
Right.
and only leave sounds of pain. Right? Only,
Right.
you know, realistic sound effects and sounds of pain. And suddenly it was hilarious. I don't know what that says about the human condition,
Yeah.
that we laugh at other people's pain.
I think
but
that says something very basic about the human
Yes.
condition. It's funny when they fall down. It's not funny when I fall down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who is your favorite guest star?
You know what the greatest thing was when somebody asked what my favorite guest star, and I just off the top of my head said Anne Hathaway, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right, and then they had it on. They asked me for
Right.
TMZ, and they cut back
Right.
to the bullpen, and they all went, "Ooh, Anne Hathaway," and I went, "Fuck
Right.
you." Anne
Right.
Hathaway
She's
is
great.
great. She was
Yeah.
great.
She is great.
No, we had so many people. I love it, of course, when Albert Brooks does
Right.
the show.
Mhm.
He's absolutely fantastic, and he ad-libs so much great stuff. In fact, I want to someday go back and dig up the ad libs
Outtakes.
of Albert Brooks and of Dan and of Harry and of Hank. I mean, they're just incredible.
Joey Clark, who we met on the strike line, who had these great Homer T-shirts.
I love those.
He created these, and he writes. His question is,
I'm suing him though.
Yeah, that's fine.
For copyright
He
infringement.
knows.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite character designers or designs in animation? That's a wide question. And were there any particular artist that inspired your style?
Let's see. Dr. Seuss was a huge inspiration to me growing up, and Charles Schultz, Peanuts, and all simple, curvy lines. That always appealed to me.
I see no similarities between Barton and Charlie Brown, none whatsoever.
Well, I will say Charlie Brown's shirt and shorts are. I did versions of them with my characters Akbar and Jeff,
right?
In Life in Hell. In fact, I got to meet Charles Schultz late in his life, and I thought, I knew he was a devout Christian, and I thought, was he going to like these characters who are gay, or maybe they're gay, they're brothers or lovers or possibly both. Yes. Yeah. And he had no problem with it.
Sure.
So there you go.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Here's a good question from him, because he deals in art. When did you first start believing in your own style and your own work?
I remember drawing on the first day of first grade. Okay. I remember drawing constantly in order to not be bored. And I knew that I was doomed for the rest of my life to draw cartoons. Right. I didn't think that I was going to make a living at it because nobody was saying, hey, you really got something there. Right. I thought I had this vision of myself working, for some reason, a tire warehouse. And I was going to be loading tires in a tire warehouse, and that on my lunch break, I was going to be drawing cartoons on the walls on the loading dock.
Right.
That was my...
It's still possible. It's not too late.
That was my vision.
You can make that dream a reality.
The fact that it went a different direction
that's pretty awesome.
I think it worked. Yeah, by the way, do people who achieve some kind of success in showbiz and Hollywood and animation, all that stuff, are they grateful, or they take it for granted? I'm so grateful. Aren't you?
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful. And no... Honestly, how lucky I am.
It's
lucky.
You know, that's such an arrogant thing. Yeah, it was luck.
No.
I just happened to. No, but
not arrogantly. Like, could have happened to anybody. That kind of luck. Like, there's a lot of talented people out there, more talented than me, who could have gotten breaks that I got, and I'm lucky.
Yes, I feel the same way.
Me too.
And it's also timing too.
Yeah.
The Simpsons came along at a perfect time in television history when the Fox network, which everybody said would never make it,
right?
And they gave us a chance. No other network would have done that, and no other network has ever done that.
Right.
Given a crazy, subversive cartoon like The Simpsons a chance.
Well, Rupert Murdoch has never done anything wrong. He's always on the right side of things. And
he just got married again for the 5th time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, aren't you happy for him?
I'm very happy. Listen, I think he finally found love after all these years. I feel like their magic is there. Monica asks, I'm fascinated by writers' ability to keep the Simpsons relevant after 34 years. What do you attribute the success of that to?
Younger writers?
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, so here's the thing. I don't have a job right now. If I knocked on Richard Sakai, your door is like, guys, I got to come back. Like you would say, too old. Listen, there's no way you can come back. You're 60 years old. We don't need a 60-year-old writer.
I think you could probably get in the door. I could
get a meeting, but I wouldn't get hired.
Well, that's true. When I say get in the door, I mean the meeting. To a meeting. Yeah, to the ante room.
Because if I were running the show, I'd say, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. But we need younger voices. We need diverse voices. We need a lot of different things that you, Jay, cannot provide us at this moment.
We do place a premium on diversity.
Yeah.
That sadly we did not in the old days.
Correct. And I understand why we did at the time, but I also understand why the correction is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you could come back.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it.
Crawling. You have to crawl.
That's how I enter every room, no matter what it is. I crawl in.
By the way, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think if I walked in off the street
Right.
to the animation studio and took the test
Right.
to see if you can draw the show,
They wouldn't.
No, I would not pass.
But that you don't have to. That's the good part.
That's it.
I know, it's so
I
sweet.
don't have to.
It's so sweet. You don't have to do that matchbook, dumb whatever that was, the donkey that you have to draw on the matchbook.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Coco asks, if you could choose any other profession, what would it be?
If I had any talent, I would love to have been a composer.
Right.
The music I hear in my brain is very good, but I have no talent.
The music on The Simpsons was magical. I will say this, that the theme is magical, but also when the composer, when Alf was finally doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and the time, and I'm lucky enough to be tasked with helping with the music. When I got in a room with that full orchestra and they did something, I was always shocked and moved every single time.
Well, there are a couple of things about that. When we were doing the show, I thought the animation was fine, but it was very primitive.
Right.
And I thought if we have a full orchestra playing the score, then it seems like we meant it.
Right.
So that was the idea behind having a full orchestra as opposed to a synth.
Right.
And the other thing is, I learned this from Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks said, "Play the emotion, not the joke."
Right.
And so so they're witty cues and stuff, but it's not.
Right.
It's not.
They aren't jokes.
Yeah.
They're either parodies, exact parodies,
Mm-hmm.
or they're telling the emotions of the characters, and they're giving the audience clues as to how the storytelling's going.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic, and it always has been. I've always been impressed by that, and I remember hearing well after I was gone that every year Fox wanted to cut the size of the orchestra down, and there was, of course, time and things do happen, but for years and years and years, you put up the good fight to keep the orchestra big.
Yeah, and the same thing when I would go to the recording sessions. It was a treat. It was like listening to your own concert. Private concert. It was just incredible how great they were. I remember when we recorded the theme with Danny Elfman, and Jim Brooks came in and said, "This is lemmings marching to their death," because for him,
right.
The Mary Tyler Moore Show and all this stuff from the 70s, he was the TV show themes were very modest,
right?
And they're saying, please enjoy our little show, and they're very sensitive. Whereas I remember the 60s where it was, Green Acres,
Right.
and brash.
That's Big Busy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so that's what I was.
I assume Jim has apologized to you since then.
No, he got on board with it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
by the way, and when we were finished with the recording, there's a chorus that says "The Simpsons." Yeah. Well, when the women who sang that, they sang their 3 syllables,
Mm-hmm.
and they left, and then we played it back, and it sounded like they were singing "The Simpson." There was no z.
No z's.
And so Danny Elfman and I went into the recording booth and we went z at the end of
Fantastic.
Simpsons. So if you listen closely,
you're the plural. Yeah, you and Danny are the plural. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great lore. Listen, you Simpsons nerds. This is the
where are
magic.
my royalties?
This is the magic. Yeah,
I'm a singer on the
Yeah,
theme.
you go in the recording booth and the secret of the night, you don't get your royalties. But that was the secret of half of the people who put on TV shows said, I'm co-writer of the theme. And they would make money being the co-writer of the theme.
No, Sam actually told me you're an idiot not to write lyrics for the theme.
Yeah. He was,
Yeah. And I went, what?
Yeah. You know what? Turns out it was okay. Financially, you guys worked out fine. Well, let me ask you this. This is another thing that I've always, when we were doing The Simpsons and it exploded,
Yeah.
it exploded. It
Yes.
became like Star Wars.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. How did you feel?
It was truly, it was like being it was beyond a dream. It was just weird.
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite have my mind around what it meant to be that crazily successful in a super fad way.
Right.
I mean, the summer of 1990 is when all the bootleg Bart T-shirts were out on the streets of
Right.
New York and LA, and I and to me that was the marker for me. It's like the bootleg T-shirts were what really said we've arrived.
Right. It must have been hard for you to get out of your car and run those people down. To say, give me back. You don't have the rights to those T-shirts. You sons of
I
bitches.
loved it.
Yeah,
It was the best. It was the greatest compliment in the world. However, again, I didn't. For instance, the show went on the air, and I was in New York shortly thereafter with a Simpsons crew jacket on, and I went on the subway figuring, that won't be a problem.
Right.
I mean, not only won't be a problem, I didn't even think about it possibly.
Right.
And 3 guys tried to get the coat off me.
Right.
So
Okay.
I realized, I can't
don't do that.
I can't wear that.
Yeah. So the shock of being, George Lucas famous in a moment is kind of must have been difficult, but being the kind of guy who, at least for me, who goes to Comic-Con, used to go to Comic-Con before I was involved with the thing, was like, I know what that is.
Right.
So I think you handle it better than anybody I've ever seen handle it.
Well, I try to be real.
Yeah.
I try to be in the moment. I try to, I'm like, I don't hide out. I
Right.
don't, I go to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I go to Comic-Con
Right.
every year. And I figure like people, if they want to meet me, they can meet me at Comic-Con. I'm almost always there.
You don't stop by my booth. I for 50 cents I draw a caricature of people. Yeah. And I'm not an artist, but I put up the sign of The Simpsons and people come by.
Well, I give it away. So there you go.
That's true. That's true.
The thing is, and the other way, the success of the show has been bizarre. Do not Google unfortunate Simpsons tattoos. Okay, I'll just say
Right.
there are a lot of bad ones out there. Although,
Yeah.
if you are giving a speech to a crowd, there is nothing that brings the house down more than concluding your speech with a slideshow
of
of
Simpsons
Simpsons tattoos.
Of good ones
People-
and bad ones.
Well, they're kind of not good.
Okay, they're never good. The other thing that you did a lot of, and you were tasked to, and I think you also were contractually as part of your thing, is to figure out the merchandising. Like you had an office. I remember your office was full of potential.
Oh yeah, there was a
Simpsons
lot of stuff
junk.
that didn't get
Right,
made.
and it was like a warehouse of stuff that you were never going to let be Simpsons products, but it's just like, oh, they sent me these towels, and this is a bug zapper, a Simpsons bug zapper, and this is
There was a Simpsons asthma inhaler, and actually I
Right.
proved that one because if the kid's using an
kids.
asthma inhaler, might as
Right.
well have a Bart Simpson one. Right?
Didn't
Jim
seem-
Brooks said his most embarrassing moment was the Simpsons cocktail swizzle stick, which we didn't.
So embarrassing that he gave the money back. I don't know. But here's the question. I don't see that kind of merchandise stuff was something that you came to the party knowing. So how did you learn that stuff?
No. I just thought I thought the merchandise was an extension of the storytelling.
Right.
In fact, so there's a term in the business called label slap, and that's where you just stick the character on the side of a lunchbox or whatever.
Right.
And I said, no, everything's got to have a joke. Everything's got to be an extension of the show.
Right.
And I think we did so much stuff that we weren't successful the whole time, but pretty much we were. So.
Well, that's, I mean,
so
also
some of that stuff is really, really great. And I thought, by the way, I read that Disney didn't have every piece of merchandise that he read. He didn't have every Mickey Mouse. I said, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna have everything. No.
Right. It's impossible.
No.
Yeah.
No, I have a warehouse full of Bart Simpson underpants.
Really?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I still have stuff. I still have like a Simpson skateboard. I still have stuff that was
There's some
given
great
to me.
stuff.
Some fun stuff.
There's some really good stuff, and there's
Yeah. And
yeah.
then
In fact, I had a guest room where it was nothing. It was just all Simpson stuff, including Simpsons pillowcases and curtains and bed sheets and stuff like that. Because I knew that if I had guests, they'd stay one night.
Be driven out.
They'd leave.
Right. The Simpsons strobe light also not good for the guests. I'm sorry about that. This is now a section of the show we like to call Listener Mail.
Now it's time for Listener Mail.
Dear Jay and guest, how important is it to leave some legacy after you pass on? By legacy, I mean a body of work in your field, whether it's music, comedy, authoring a book, etc., as well as a legacy of how you interact with people.
Well, I mean, that's been sort of the subject of today's show,
Exactly,
right?
yeah. But this is different. This is saying, is it important to have a legacy at all?
Yeah, ultimately, no, it doesn't matter.
Right,
Nothing matters. But it's nice. It's nice to have a record of your time here and maybe cheer somebody up and make people laugh. That I like.
How quickly do you think The Simpsons, when it finally goes off the air, which maybe never, but if it does, will pass into that great beyond of
there are certain things that you and I grew up with that I thought would live forever,
right?
And finding out from younger writers, for instance, they're not really familiar with Johnny Carson, for instance,
right?
Or the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
right?
Or whatever. It's just like
or Cheers or bathing.
Things change.
Right. Yeah, things do change. Yeah,
and one of the reasons why I'm so proud of, again, the work of others, that The Simpsons is still going, is that it's not a ghost ship.
Right.
We're still making episodes and
great ones
and yeah,
they're not all great, but a lot of great ones. A lot of great ones.
I think it's a tribute to Al Jean and Matt Selman and the current group of people.
It is a tribute to them, and it's great, but it will be forgotten, just like everything is forgotten.
Everything is forgotten,
and that's
okay. So Bugs Bunny, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how many people know Looney Tunes?
No, they don't.
Right?
They don't. I talk to young writers and they go, huh?
Yeah.
Like that actually upsets me. Most of the other, if you say I never saw Cheers, fine. You never saw Looney Tunes? It's so core. Monty Python and Looney Tunes seem so core to what comedy should be.
Well, that's the other thing. Comedy changes. Something that was funny 1 century is not necessarily, I am a huge fan of Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
Huge fan. And I understand it just completely leaves people, staring blankly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my blacksmithing jokes don't work anymore. So I get what you're saying, that everything has a time and a place, but it is upsetting.
And again, one of the inspirations for The Simpsons was a lot of the, Buster Keaton, silent live action comedy in addition to Looney Tunes and stuff like that. And
Laurel and Hardy, I mean, for sure, their physical humor was fantastic.
David Silverman used to give Homer Oliver Hardy finger twiddles and stuff. So yes,
Buster Keaton in Bart the Daredevil, there's a lot of amazing physical comedy that reminds me a lot of Buster Keaton stuff, and we did it on purpose. Because we were inspired. Now, what are people inspired by now?
Okay,
Drugs.
So were you around for possibly the best sequence in the show when Homer skateboards over the gorge?
Yes, I wrote that. That's my bit. That's
Dude,
my bit.
I worship you.
Well,
I know. Finally.
Yeah.
No. That was the fact, and that to me there was a little bit of Buster Keaton.
That's the Buster Keaton I'm talking about.
You think you know what the joke is, and then you get 3 extra jokes.
Exactly. When the ambulance put Lone in the ambulance, he's hit the ambulance and he falls back down. That is Buster Keaton all over.
That when and the ambulance only went like 10 feet. That was the greatest thing.
Yes.
It only went 10 feet. That is like maybe the greatest moment in 20th century humor.
I'm very proud of it. Wally and I. It's Wally Wolodarski and Jake Hogan, and we imagined it. We fought for it. And we're so proud that it's there.
This has been a pleasure to do, but also to find out or to be reminded that you were responsible for some of the greatest things in the entire series.
I can't tell you what a pleasure it is for me to take credit for the greatest thing in the series.
By the way, I'm taking your word for it.
Yeah,
that was my job.
It's true. I got witnesses. George Meyer wouldn't let it happen. Wouldn't let me say it if it weren't true.
Well, you know what's amazing to me also is that, again, I thought my memory was pretty good, but I misremembered a lot of stuff. And it's amazing how many people do remember.
Yeah.
In the moment, like, why do we remember that? Partly because it was successful.
Yeah.
But we were in that room for hours and hours and hours, days and days and days, weeks and weeks and weeks.
I remember certain things, and so much I don't remember. A guy like Jeff Martin remembers everything. He's got a memory.
There was another overlooked genius who wrote so many of the great songs.
Yeah. He didn't overlook his genius. I'm telling you. Jeff Martin was very clear about his genius.
So let's do this for another 7 hours.
No, we're almost done. This is our last thing, a moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
What's something that brings you joy? Now, knowing that you have 45 children, you don't have much time for joy other than children, but you do have to. I'm excluding children from the conversation.
Okay.
So what else aside from your children gives you joy?
I get a sort of a pure, unfiltered joy when I see a hummingbird.
Interesting.
I see a hummingbird.
Because of its defying physics?
It just seems completely bizarre and perfect and beautiful.
Right.
And it brings me, and that they have consented to come into a world where I can see them.
Do you have hummingbird feeders?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you encourage the joy.
I do
brings
encourage
it in.
them.
Okay.
But they come at their own will.
No,
they don't.
You can't tell a hummingbird what to do.
You cannot tell a hummingbird what to do.
Now, the thing about hummingbirds, don't they live for 45 seconds and then die?
Probably.
It's like a thing, like their heart beats so fast that they don't have a fabulously long life, but the life they live.
And they eat a lot of sugar. It's just not good for the health.
No, it's not good. It's not good. But they're making more hummingbirds, so they must be doing something right.
No, I love hummingbirds.
That's awesome. Matt, thank you for consenting to do this.
Oh,
I'm honored.
I'm honored too. I think this should be a series, just you and me.
Maybe. But I want to be serious.
Wait, I like that. Maybe.
Well, when I get the gig on The Simpsons, then you can get the gig on my podcast.
Okay.
There's I'm in Hollywood too long to just say yes.
Do you ever think of having a sidekick?
No, I couldn't afford one. But now maybe we'll do it. But I really wanted to thank you for coming here. I also really wanted to thank you for sitting with me, because I think for many years, we did not connect, right. and I didn't like that. And I also think that I had said some things that weren't kind to you a while back. That wasn't what I didn't fully say those things, but the things were printed. And so in Simpson histories and things that came off bad. And I want to say publicly, no, this is serious. Because
I'm sorry.
I want to be sincere.
I'll take you seriously.
I want to be sincere. The Simpsons is amazing. The Simpsons wouldn't exist without you. The Simpsons is a special thing in my life, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful to having had the opportunity to hang around you and work with you and get to know you a little bit. I wouldn't say we're buddies, but I say we're friends. Yeah. But we're acquaintances, and somebody who I do consider you somebody who I know and like, and in a lot of ways love, because I respect you and I really honor your talent and honor your kindness.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to go look up what you did to insult me. So
Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
No, I'm kidding. Back at you. By the way, and you don't want this mutual admiration society kind of podcast, but
we'll cut it out.
But thank you for everything you did for the show. I mean, really, really incredible. And you wrote, and I learned that you wrote some of my favorite stuff on the show.
That's good. Had you been there at the time, you just didn't remember. But that's all good.
By the way, so there have been 750 episodes, and the ones that we've been talking about. What years were you there?
89. We started making these in 89, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then we left 5 years after that.
Okay, but that's 90% of what people talk about.
Yeah.
And we've done some other amazing episodes since then, but there's something about the years of struggle, I think, that's another thing about comedy.
Right.
Struggle is funny, and success is not.
Well, we were working hard, and it's true that people take The Simpsons for granted, and these other shows, Family Guy and South Park, have also been on for a million years.
I just did a panel discussion with Seth MacFarlane and Mike Judge and Lauren Bouchard, who does Bob's Burgers, and the moderator started out talking to Seth, saying, "Oh my God, Family Guy, 400 episodes. That's absolutely incredible." I went, "Ooh, 400 episodes."
It's true. It's true. Talk to me when you hit 500, buddy. Talk to me when you hit 7.
Well, I remember when we did, I think it was episode 100. I think it was David Merkin said, "Halfway home," and everybody laughed.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're
we'll never go that far. Yeah.
You ever have to shove a guest out the door? Like you're doing to me right now?
I'm happy to stay here and talk with you forever. Thank you for being here, Matt. I hope it's not another 25 years before we meet again. Although you did make me promise this is in lieu of the lunch that we were going to have. So you're off the hook for the lunch. But maybe you want to go to lunch now. Maybe at some point you want to go to lunch.
I do want to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. And
bye.
Thank you for being here. Don't be alone with somebody. You find somebody to not be alone with. And then we'll fight loneliness, and then you won't be so fucking miserable. All right. Talk to you next time.
Don't be